Managerial Accounting Example 5B. We're going to continue our flex budget example for Hutchinson Cookie Company. So we've made our budget, and we've budgeted net income of $208,000. Now we're told that the company has actual results. So the budget was done before the year happened, and then now the year happens, and we've got actual results. So what we need to do is figure out how to deal with the fact that our actual results are different from our budget. So I'll throw the actual results in here, and I'll leave a column of space, and I'll show you why in a minute. And I'll just go ahead and copy and paste what I can, just to save you the agony of watching me type. All right, and so what we see when we do this is that the company has sold 43,000 units when they only expected to sell 40,000. They've got additional revenue as a result of selling those extra units. The variable costs, some have gone down from what we expected, and some have gone up. So we expected to use $200,000 of direct material cost. We only used $193, so we spent less on materials than we expected. If we look at direct labor, we expected to spend $120, we've spent $172. Our variable overhead has gone up from 60 to 68. Our sales commissions have gone up from 50,000 to 50,525. So our expenses have gone up, our variable expenses have gone up, which we would expect because we're selling more units. So we would expect our variable cost to go up. Our revenue has gone up a little bit, our variable costs have gone up. If we look at our total contribution margin, even though we've sold more units than we expected to, our total contribution margin is lower. If we go back to Chapter 3 and we think about our basic cost volume profit analysis, this should not happen if all of the assumptions about revenue per unit and cost per unit and all those things, if those assumptions hold, selling more units should only cause our contribution margin to go up. What Chapter 3 wasn't considering, though, it wasn't part of Chapter 3, was the fact that our actual results might look different from our budget. What I mean by that is our actual revenue per unit might not be the same thing as our budgeted revenue per unit. Our actual variable cost per unit might not be what our variable cost per unit was. And also, as we can see, our actual fixed costs might not be the same as our budgeted. So Chapter 3 was all about planning what should happen. Now we're thinking about what should happen, or what actually does happen, and how that differs from what should happen. So all we've done here is we've put our budget in, we've put our actual cost in. Now, say you're the production manager, and the VP of operations comes yelling at you because your labor cost is too high. The first thing you're going to say in your defense is, well, yeah, my labor cost is too high, but hey, I made 43,000 cookies instead of 40,000, so of course my labor cost is going to go up. I've got a bunch of variable cost here that we should expect to go up because we do more work. That's true. But does that mean your variable cost should go up all the way to 172? Maybe, maybe not. Really what we're looking at when we look at our original planning budget and our actual results, if the units of activity aren't the same, then it's your proverbial apples to oranges comparison, because expenses at 43 and expenses at 40 should not be the same to the extent they're variable. So what can we do about this? Well, what we can do is we can create a budget after the fact. We can adjust our budget to the actual results. We can come up with a budget at 43,000 units and say, what should we have spent? How much revenue should we have earned, and what variable expenses should we have had if we had correctly predicted the number of units that we sell? And so that's what a flexible budget is there to do. It's to help us make an apples to apples comparison between our budget and our actual. So all we really need to do is take our actual number of units, multiply them by our budgeted revenue and cost per unit, and simply fill in a budget for what we should have at 43,000 units. Now, of course, our fixed costs are simply going to be the same as they are at our planning budget of 40,000. Oops, didn't want that to happen. Still didn't want that to happen. Why is my double click not working? Fill form, there we go. Our fixed costs are going to stay the same because the additional 3,000 units we sell should not affect fixed costs because they're fixed. So what we have here is a flexible budget. So we can make an apples to apples comparison between our actual results at 43,000 units and what a proper budgeted result at 43,000 units would be. This allows us to see that our revenue per unit is substantially less than we expected it to be. At 43,000 units, we expected to make $1,075,000 of revenue. We've only made $1,010,000. So we probably sold our units at a lower than expected price. Well, we definitely did. We might have given away more coupons than we expected. We might have done buy one, get one free specials. We may have had unhappy customers and we gave them sales return or sales allowances, or they may have returned some items. For whatever reason, our revenue per unit is not what it's supposed to be. We need to go to marketing and find out why. What happened with our customers that they paid us less per unit? As we start looking at our variable expenses, we can see that our direct material cost, our cookie dough, instead of being $215 was only $193. So we've got to try to figure out why that would be. Same thing for direct labor. So your labor should have been $129. Why was it $172? What happened there? Same thing with our other variable expenses. So we can take a look at all of our variable expenses and we can try to figure out why they're not what our budget says they should be. And again, same thing with fixed expenses. Our fixed manufacturing overhead was up a little bit. Our advertising was up a little bit. So again, the flexible budget gives us a reasonable apples-to-apples comparison to help us understand how performance was during the year. So that's requirement 2, a flexible budget for the actual output of 43,000 units.